Imagine waking up in Dubai, the city that built the tallest tower on Earth, the city that turned a desert into the financial capital of the world, and hearing missile sirens. Not in a war movie, not in a simulation, in real life. That is exactly what happened. And in the next few minutes, you're going to understand why what Iran just did in 24 hours did not just shake the UAE. It may have permanently shattered the master plan that took 5 decades to build. Stay with me, because the most shocking part of this story is not the missiles. It is what those missiles revealed about a war that is now reshaping the entire world order. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is at stake. Not just for the Gulf, not just for the Middle East, but for every single economy on the planet. To understand what just happened, you have to understand what the UAE was trying to be. For the last 50 years, Abu Dhabi and Dubai made a bet. That bet was simple but brilliant. In a neighborhood of chaos, they would be the island of stability. While Iraq burned, while Syria collapsed, while Yemen descended into crisis, the UAE quietly said to the world, "Come here, invest here, build here, be safe here." And the world listened. Dubai became the global transit hub connecting east and west. Abu Dhabi became one of the most powerful sovereign wealth fund capitals on Earth. The UAE attracted over 200 nationalities, built the world's busiest international airport, and created an economy where oil is now less than 30% of GDP. That is the master plan. Diversify, stabilize, project safety, and become indispensable to the world. It was working perfectly, right up until February 28th, 2026. On that date, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military campaign against Iran, a campaign aimed at nothing less than regime change. The strikes hit Tehran, Isfahan, Qom, and multiple military installations across the country. Within hours, Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei was dead. The world held its breath, because everyone knew Iran had promised that if it was attacked, it would not just retaliate against Israel and the United States, it would light the entire region on fire. And Iran kept that promise. What followed was not a targeted military response. It was a storm. A calculated, overwhelming, and deeply strategic storm designed to send one message to every country in the Gulf. There is no such thing as a safe neighbor when Iran decides you are a target. On the very first day, Iran fired 137 ballistic missiles and 209 drones at the UAE alone, just the UAE, in one day. To put that in perspective, that is more than what most countries in the world have ever fired in their entire military history. And that was just the beginning. The missiles and drones targeted Al Dhafra Air Base, home to U.S. military assets and advanced aircraft. But here is what changed everything. Iran did not stop at the military base. Debris from intercepted missiles fell in residential areas near Zayed International Airport. A Shahed-type drone struck near the Fairmont Hotel on Palm Jumeirah. Dubai International Airport, the world's busiest airport by international passenger traffic, was hit in a strike that injured staff and forced an evacuation. The Jebel Ali port, the region's most critical logistics hub and the largest port in the Middle East, was set on fire by debris from aerial interceptions. And then came the image that went around the world. Damage reported around the Burj Al Arab, the hotel that is literally the symbol of Dubai's ambition. Now, pause here for a second, because what you need to understand is not just the physical damage. The physical damage was actually controlled. UAE air defenses are exceptional. They intercepted 172 ballistic missiles and 755 drones in those first days. The real damage was not structural, it was psychological, it was reputational, and it was economic, because the UAE's entire identity is built on the promise that this kind of thing does not happen here. When a drone hits near the Burj Al Arab, it is not just an explosion. It is a message sent to every hedge fund manager in London, every tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, every multinational corporation that has its regional headquarters in Dubai Media City or Abu Dhabi Global Market. This place is no longer the exception to Middle East instability. It is now part of it. And the markets responded immediately. UAE stock exchanges were forced to close for 2 days, something that had never happened before under these circumstances. When they reopened, they sold off sharply. International airlines including British Airways, Lufthansa, Air India, Cathay Pacific, Virgin Atlantic, and dozens more suspended all Middle East services. Emirates Airlines, the crown jewel of the UAE's global brand, suspended flights until further notice. The tourism sector, which contributes billions to Dubai's non-oil economy every year, did not just slow down, it stopped. But here is where the story gets far bigger than just the UAE. Because while the world was watching Dubai burn on live streams, something else was happening quietly. And this is the part that should concern every single person watching this video, regardless of where you live. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. Let that sink in for a moment. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow channel. at its narrowest point just 21 miles wide, through which approximately 20% of the entire world's oil supply passes every single day. Every barrel of crude that leaves Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, Qatar, it goes through that strait. And Iran, sitting right on the northern edge of it, said those words that the global energy market has nightmares about. No ship passes. Within 48 hours of that announcement, Brent crude oil prices jumped from around $70 a barrel to over $80. But analysts are warning that if the closure continues, we could see prices that would trigger a global recession. The last time there was a serious threat to Hormuz, the global economy shook. This is not a threat anymore. This is a reality, and the economic shockwaves are already moving. Qatar, which supplies a significant portion of Europe's liquefied natural gas, was forced to suspend most of its natural gas production after Iranian strikes hit its territory. Think about what that means for European energy prices. Europe spent the last 3 years rebuilding its energy security after the Ukraine war. That work is now in serious jeopardy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell over 400 points in a single session. Major financial institutions are already revising global growth forecasts downward. The word that economists are quietly using is stagflation, slow growth combined with rising prices. The worst possible combination for the global economy. Now let us come back to the Gulf, because what Iran did strategically was not random. It was calculated with a cold, precise logic. Look at the targets. Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE hosts U.S. military assets. Al Minhad Air Base is used by the UAE Air Force and the Royal Air Force of Britain. The U.S. consulate in Dubai was hit by a drone, triggering a fire. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh was struck. U.S. Navy facilities in Bahrain were targeted multiple times. Iran's message was clear. Every country that allows U.S. forces on its soil is not a neutral party. You have made a choice, and there are consequences for that choice. This is why Oman's targeting was perhaps the most revealing signal of all. Oman has spent decades being the one Gulf country that maintained genuine warm relations with Iran. It has served as a back channel for U.S.-Iran diplomacy multiple times. Oman's entire foreign policy strategy, known informally as friend to all, enemy to none, was supposed to protect it from exactly this kind of situation. Iran struck it anyway. That single act told every country in the region something deeply unsettling. There are no exemptions. There is no diplomatic insurance policy. If you're in the Gulf, you're in the conflict zone. Saudi Arabia received that message loud and clear. 2 Iranian drones targeted Aramco's Ras Tanura refinery, the kingdom's largest refining complex. Saudi air defenses intercepted both, but debris ignited fires inside the facility and Aramco halted operations. Saudi Arabia, which just 3 years ago normalized relations with Iran in a landmark agreement, found itself caught in a conflict it tried desperately to avoid. Kuwait's oil fields were targeted, Bahrain's airport was hit, and in Qatar, a hotel, 2 residential buildings, and an oil refinery were struck by Iranian strikes. The Gulf Cooperation Council, the alliance built precisely to present a unified Gulf front, issued a joint statement with the United States condemning Iran's attacks. But here's the tension beneath that statement. Every single one of those Gulf countries knows that joining military action against Iran means turning 24 hours of crisis into years of war on their doorstep. And yet, staying silent feels like weakness. The UAE announced it would maintain a purely defensive posture. It would not strike Iran. But it also announced it is now examining something that could be even more devastating to Iran than any missile, freezing Iranian financial assets held in the UAE. Dubai's free zones have for years been home to Iranian shell companies, shadow oil trading networks, and currency exchange houses that helped Iran move money around U.S. sanctions. The UAE, under U.S. pressure for years to crack down, largely looked the other way because those networks also brought money and business into Dubai. That arrangement is now over. The UAE is now examining a complete financial shutdown of Iranian economic activity on Emirati soil. For Iran, which has relied on Dubai as a financial pressure valve for decades, this could be devastating in ways that go far beyond any missile exchange. And what of the broader conflict? By day 7, U.S. and Israeli forces had carried out over 2,500 strikes, claiming to have destroyed 80% of Iran's air defense systems and approximately 300 ballistic missile launchers. The rate of Iranian missile fire at both Israel and the Gulf states dropped by roughly 70%, a sign that the strategy of destroying launchers before Iran could use them was working militarily. But Iran responded by escalating in a different dimension, launching its 23rd wave of strikes at Israel, targeting European diplomatic presence, and warning NATO countries that assisting U.S. operations would make them, in Tehran's words, legitimate targets. NATO allies are now being dragged in reluctantly. France deployed Rafale jets to the Gulf and sent the Charles de Gaulle carrier to the Mediterranean. Germany withdrew forces from Bahrain and Kuwait. Britain is pulling embassy staff, and in an extraordinary moment, a French evacuation flight trying to rescue citizens stranded in the UAE was forced to turn back mid-flight due to active missile fire in the region. 20,000 Americans have evacuated the Middle East. India canceled school exams for students in UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, and Saudi Arabia. The human displacement from this conflict is already in the millions. And Trump's position? On day 7, he stated plainly on Truth Social, "There will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender, no negotiation, no ceasefire, no compromise. Either Iran surrenders or the campaign continues." He estimated the war could last 4 to 5 weeks, but warned it could go far longer. Here's the final picture that you need to carry with you. The UAE did everything right for 50 years. It built a city that defied geography, defied history, and defied the region's instability. It diversified, it invested, it opened itself to the world. And in 24 hours, Iran sent a message that no amount of architectural ambition, no amount of sovereign wealth, and no amount of diplomatic neutrality can fully protect you from a conflict you are sitting inside. The master plan was brilliant, but it was built on the assumption that the neighborhood would never come for you directly. That assumption is now gone. And what replaces it, whether it is a new regional security architecture, a broken global energy system, or a conflict that pulls in more nations than anyone wants to admit, that is the story that is going to define the next decade. The Strait of Hormuz is still under threat. The missiles are still flying. The markets are still falling. And the world is watching, waiting, to find out whether this becomes the conflict that changes everything, or whether someone, somewhere, finds a way to stop it before it does.